The world's greatest team that has ever existed quite possibly could be one day coming from Japan. It hasn't quite happened yet, ladies and gentlemen, but a dynasty has reigned across the LJL for its whole history. For one of these teams in this Juggernaut match has never not made it to finals. But we will see if they will reclaim it in the form that I imagine they'd love to be in, or will it be a repeat of the 2020 spring Juggernaut match and finals? We will find out. I am Mas Obi, one of your hosts. Well, I am your host for this Juggernaut match. Pre-game desk between DetonatioN FocusMe and Sengoku Gaming. Joining me on the desk today, in the man in the middle today, is going to be the beautiful of the crows. Sir, hello, welcome.
Hello, yes, good morning. Up early for this Juggernaut matchup I'm so excited to get into. Thanks for having me here today.
Oh, pleasure at all. And so over on the opposite side from me, Infinite Dodge. So hello, welcome.
Why
Yes,
yes. Thank you for having me on this most fine of desks, Mr. Swan. I am quite happy to be here. So excited for this matchup.
You are both most welcome. It is a pleasure to have you both. Had to get you on at some point to make sure that everybody gets their space of coverage on the LJL. Oh, you! With that said, though, DetonatioN FocusMe facing off against Sengoku Gaming, a match truly that has always delivered, well, except for the summer lower bracket, but we don't talk about 2020 lower brackets at Sengoku. No. This is not Bruno. But what is Bruno is our standings, ladies and gentlemen, and the bracket system so far, and how these two teams kind of fare up and why we've not seen them yet. If our lovely producer, oh, thank you, Chris Edgeworth. We've already seen a few matches already so far, gentlemen. Rascal Jester facing off against Crest Gaming Act and Burning Core facing off against the Hawks. Obviously, they're going to be meeting up in the lower bracket of round number 2. However, DetonatioN FocusMe and Sengoku Gaming, they got that first and second spot. I mean, obviously, for Sengoku Gaming, that was the head-to-head score which got them there. But, gentlemen, what's great for them is they have... The loser faces off against the winner of Rascal Jester Burning Core. So you want to win here, so you get all the tape on the enemy. What about the journey for these two teams? What stacked up when you're just looking at the standing and bracket? I feel like Sengoku got a little bit lucky, personally.
Yeah, if I could cut right in, that's exactly what I was going to say. You've taken the words right out of my mouth here, Swan. I was looking at it and I was like, wow, that one game head-to-head difference maker against Rascal Jester really put you in such a fine position as Sengoku, considering they have not beaten DetonatioN FocusMe a single time yet this year, Crow.
Oh, man, yeah, see... That's always the fun part about these standings, you know, getting to the Juggernaut match, getting that all-important head-to-head in the triple round robin. And yeah, you're right. Sengoku have not beaten DFM so far this split, and it's definitely looking to be quite interesting matchup here, you know, with their history of these teams going back and forth in playoffs. Yeah. So I'm definitely, this match is like, I'm literally buzzing. Maybe it's the caffeine, maybe it's the anticipation.
Well, what is the time over there? I've got to ask for both of you as well.
Okay. Well, for my beautiful self, it is 3:35 a.m. on the dot.
4:35 a.m. here on the West Coast as I cover up and take a sip of this nondescript, non-branded energy drink.
Of course, yes. And me with my... Oh God, we've got the NA crew with us, ladies and gentlemen. Our producer, Mr. Chris Edgeworth, as well. But the UK represent with myself, Initializer and Nymera will be on as your casters today, ladies and gentlemen. But they're later. They're later. They're not now. This is us. This is all about us, lovely 3/4 with Chris in our ears. Bringing it back though to this match, and Crow, you brought this up just a moment ago. The matchups that they have this split so far, at least, is all DFM favored. And if we can bring that lovely graphic on screen, it's mostly been DFM kind of squashing Sengoku Gaming one way or another. I mean, look at that game from Honey in game number 2, like 16-1-6.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you actually look at the stat lines and score lines all across. Sengoku have not had a good time against them this the split, like you see it right there on the screen. You're just like, oh my goodness, like DetonatioN FocusMe actually getting away with murder and then some with these scores.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, coming over to you, Dodge, which was your favorite series out of these three?
I would have to go with seeing Utapon absolutely pop off on the Jinx. It's been such a pleasure to watch this, core of DetonatioN FocusMe, these older players in Evi and Steel and Utapon show not only do they still have it, they can all turn in career best splits this late along. It really goes to dispel a lot of that narrative that's all too prevalent in esports spaces that you're somehow completely washed by the time you are 23. It's not the case, and we've seen them, just win in such a wide variety of ways, but watching the Utapon scaling hypercarry show has definitely been my favorite way of seeing it happen for DFM this season.
Absolutely, and I think a player that emphasizes that more than anything else on DFM, and not just Utapon, but I mean the whole team do, but Ebby! Ebby was the Renekton Gnar, like, poster child. Like, he was like, everyone now in the LCK is playing Gnar, and Ebby's actually going, hey, I'm gonna move away from this and pick up that Fiora that we saw in game number 2, the Camille in game number 1. These are the Gwen in game 3. These are champions that we didn't used to associate with him, but he's had just such a glow up. And Crow, what does it mean for a player who already had maybe the peak of their career, as Dodge has already mentioned beforehand, but now is maybe the best they've ever been?
Look, I'm telling you, he got some sort of Worlds buff, Worlds rub after that last performance they had at 2021 Worlds. I believe, if I got the count right, Evi's played 11 different champions in top lane alone this split. And the man is just actually so good on all of them. He's just looking like a completely, outclassing all these top laners. I believe he's like first in all margins for top laners in this league, and it's just, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful to see him, like Dodge said, being this veteran presence in the top lane and absolutely showing that he is the top for a reason. He is the pinnacle of the mountain of the LJL when it comes to top laners for very good reason.
Dodge, anything else you'd like to talk about with that? Just gushing over Ebby. That's what we're doing here. This is the Ebby appreciation broadcast.
I do love to heap praise on Evi, of course. I mean, I think the most miraculous thing about it is, and it goes back to what you say about you look at the career patterns. I mean, this is the guy who set the stereotype that LJL is a Gnar Renekton region, but the meta changes coming into the 2022 season, coming into Season 12 here with Hullbreaker as an addition, things like this, that meta means you can see Evi go from, these more, I don't want to say, Renekton and Gnar can be lane dominant, but not in the same way that these side lane split pushers are. He's not just finding the effectiveness, he's finding domination on the likes of the Tryndamere and the Gwen, these side lane split pushers, the Camille's. I mean, this guy has more solo kills in the regular split than games played. He was averaging at least 1 solo kill per game. It's not just a new peak being reached, it's a reinvention in terms of style and how it's being achieved. It's nothing short of miraculous, to be quite honest.
I want the head-to-head graphic between Paz and Ebby here, because I never realized that, Dodge, until you just mentioned it now. And I was pulling up half of the stats with you, gentlemen, around this. 22 solo kills Ebby has had, 21 games he's played. I didn't realize that, Dodge. That is a wild stat. But then you compare it to Paz, he's tied with like 3 other players on 5th, and that's kind of like a spot where you think about it's okay. Washi Day has, I believe, 7 tied 2nd, but it's like, just Ebby is having a masterclass, and the only reason he can't be the damage percent is because of the versatility of DFM. Like, by the way, he's one of the top players for the damage overall per minute. It's just the versatility and how broad the damage gets spread across his team. He's still not the highest. That's why he's not first. Only way he can't get first.
Yeah, I think it sort of speaks to the fact that although we've seen these super lane dominant picks at times come out from Evi, it's not in It's not a linear transfer of, well, now I'm focusing on this set of skills and I can't maintain what I used to do. We see the side lanes of DFM sort of alternate in the carry duty, right? Utapon, functioning a little bit more than just late game insurance, can be the primary carry for this team, which is not a common trait amongst AD carries. And in those cases, we can still see Evie go back to the old reliables. He can find the Gnar, right? He's even shown us some spice, the likes of the Yorick, the Aatrox, a little bit of more unorthodox picks. I think the flexibility is really a common theme amongst both these teams that we can get into a little bit deeper a little bit later, but it's really so special to see what he's doing this season.
I'd love to go back to that graphic if we can, Mr. Edgeworth, because Crow, there was another man on that screen.
There was.
Paz.
There was.
Paz has represented us twice at Worlds on 2 separate teams. This would be number 3 if obviously he was successful. He's already been to MSI on different teams. Like, this is a player not to slouch over, and the stats don't really quite tell the journey that he's had so far.
Right, and yeah, I agree. Yeah, the stats make him look, it's like, oh, wait, he's 5th, 6th, and 8th. Like, why do we care about Paz? Like, well, we care about Paz because the man is definitely having a great split so far, or a great split, rather, as we are into playoffs. He's been such a stable force for Sengoku. Like, when they do look good, they're like, oh yeah, this Paz guy, he's pretty good at League of Legends. Has a good number of games on different champions. You know, you did see a lot of the typical Gnar, the Graves pick, the Gwen, because you know everybody loves some Gwen, but he has been a really good staple force for Sengoku. It's just unfortunate that you see the numbers and you like at glance you're like, oh, that doesn't look anything to scoff at. But then when you watch the games, when you watch the playbacks, you're like, oh wait, he actually gets a lot of work done being such a good facilitator for his team.
Yeah, and not everybody can just beat Ebby. Not everybody can be like Ebby and just be a lane dominant player. I think it's really important. Paz, even when he went to Worlds with V3 and seemed to almost have that kind of edge, it was because of he facilitated to the team, and I think that's what Paz is fantastic at doing, facilitating to the Sengoku powerhouse that is Want, Jet, Honey, Enti. No, okay, yeah, you don't need to carry so much when you've got those other names on your team, especially Once as well, who I'd love to talk to you guys about. Once versus Steel. Like, these are our 2 Korean resident players. This is how these teams have 3 Korean players both in it, and it's from the jungle role. And these are 2 players who have always been around for ages in the LJL. I mean, obviously, Steel has the bit of record because of the domination that is those 2. And oh yeah, I've got a lovely little graphic. I didn't even plan for that, but I mean, this is just a really important matchup, and I think a lot is going to be decided by these 2 players. Obviously, Once plays pretty different to Steel.
Yeah, I would say for once it's a bit of a renaissance. It's moving back to an old form that we haven't seen for quite a while from him, but he's finding it mostly on these attack damage facilitator type junglers. It's mostly the Lee Sin and the Jarvan. It's a lot of Jarvan and Lee Sin. It's basically all he plays. A couple of scattered games on the Hecarim, the Xin Zhao, the likes of those champions as well. But basically just really leaning into the shift that we got between the big meta shifts between Season 11 and 12. We're moving away from the hyper farming and towards playing for your lanes as a jungler. Steel does that in his own regard as well, but it's more on the pure tank. We've seen, you know, the chem tank Hecarim. It's not big damage carry Hecarim, and so much Poppy. I mean, the Poppy duty for Steel has just been dished out over and over again for him. So, you know, they're both leaning in towards the standard style of the day through the jungle, which is gank a lot, pair up with your support to find plays, but it's different in the style of champion they're using to achieve those goals, and Once just makes it look so exciting with the big flashy mechanical outplays. We're talking flag drags, we're talking cataclysms, kickbacks. It's all there for him.
It really has been all there. I mean, Crow, who do you think is actually going to have the edge in this matchup?
See, that is the thing. It's fun because watching all the different regions that I have watched, all the League of Legends that I've been ingesting and downloading into my brain these past few months, you see Japan picking the Poppy priority in the jungle, and Steel is you know, I don't want to say like the largest offender of it, but one of the largest proponents of it. And you look at the champion pools between him and Once. You look at Once playing the initiators, the divers that go in. You look at Steel with this Poppy in his pocket that is able to deny so many initiators, deny so much engage. And you would give the edge over to Steel, who has been having such a great split, like coming into the playoffs. I'm so excited for him to get into this. They do share that champion pool, though, with some of those picks, but you see the Xin Zhao, you see the Diana, you see both of them sharing the Hecarim, but I really am looking at those two picks, the Xin Zhao and the Poppy from Steel, to really be the difference maker going into this head-to-head.
I feel like we're going to be probably not seeing any Hecarim throughout this series, though, gentlemen. We're on patch 12.5, so I believe won't be any Hecarim. Probably first rotation ban. Champion's too broken at the moment. The fact that you can build both Divine Sundra and Chemtech, and the champion just runs around the map, and you're like, is he just going to one-shot me? Or is he going to run really fast and then probably one-shot me afterwards? It's a bit of 50-50 if it's just going to be a bonk or a delayed bonk. But we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe it will get through the draft. It would be very interesting. But, gentlemen, I think we've gabbered for long enough without and danced around the topic that is predictions. Gentlemen, Mr. Edgeworth, if you could bring that in for us, please. He wasn't ready. I can
wasn't ready.
tell. I
hear the airstrike. Oh, look at that! Who would have guessed?
Oh,
So,
whoa. Oh,
okay.
wow.
So, I'm going to have to explain something here because you both have gone 3-0. And
Yes.
actually, before explaining myself why I believe there's going to be a loss, I want to come over to you first, Infinite Dodge. I want to know why you think it's going to be a perfect 3-0 for DFM.
I think it's going to be a matter of playstyle, specifically around the bot lane. That's where I've focused a lot of my VOD review, and I've looked at the way these teams tend to play around their AD carries. And while you see, a lot of focus from Sengoku on getting their bot lane ahead, it's more reactive, it's more defensive. Enti, he doesn't play, these big initiating picks that force the issue. He plays mostly Tahm Kench, and then, his other career sort of staple has been the Thresh, but this isn't a Carrier LCK Finals Predator Thresh. This is your standard sit back and peel Thresh. They look to punish mistakes, and they're very good at it. I don't want to paint Sengoku's bot lane as untalented or unskilled at what it is they do. It's just their style, I feel like, doesn't match the sort of fire that you need to be a top team. And I don't say that lightly, because I do love me some Sengoku. I don't own any Sengoku merch, so I went with Son Goku merch coming into today's desk to show my appreciation for the guys over at Sengoku. It's only one letter away there. So I really want to see Sengoku challenge and prove themselves here, but I feel like the one place where they have the firepower in terms of skill to contest, which is the bot lane, is not necessarily a place where they're going to stylistically be able to find many advantages against the likes of Harp and Utapon. So unfortunately, I'm feeling the clean 3-0 for DFM, especially looking at prior results on the season.
Makes sense for me. Crow, what about you?
Well, so I do know DFM have a habit of having a for fun game in some of their playoffs matches, and usually that is resulting in them having at least one loss on their record. But
No.
it's this. I feel as if they're coming into this playoffs with something to prove after those, 2 losses to Rascal Jester. It's like they're like, hey, we gotta put the reminder to y'all why we're so revered in this reason, why we are top dogs. And I just feel like they're going to turn it up because I do know how potent Sengoku can be when they get the ball rolling, when Honey and Inti get online, with Once actually does get unlocked. I feel like going into this matchup, they should know better than to underestimate them in any way, and they're just going to have the fire completely turned up to 11 from the start.
Agree with you, but Honey will run over a game. That is why I have put 3-1. I completely align with you, Dodge. The bot lane is where the firepower is. I also think it's where they could find that small edge occasionally, where Honey just pops off randomly. Granted, Utapon has had the edge every single time, but that was also partly Steel. That was also partly Steel parving correctly, causing level 2, level 3 shenanigans, which is something that DFM are very cultured in doing. Though I do expect they'll probably just punt something away. But hey, they've lost more Juggernaut matches than they've won, which they've actually been in. They've played in 3. They haven't been perfect 4. That's been because, remember, they had a really bad split. One of them where they went 7-7 across the whole season. That was not a good DFM. But they made finals, so it was okay. They kept their finals record. Yeah, they've lost, gentlemen, more Juggernaut matches than they've won. So why are we all? Why do we all just think it's locked? Are we just not looking into the history that this is normal for DFM? They get the lower bracket buff and then they just win out afterwards. No, just am I crazy?
Well, no, I definitely have taken into account they have not had the best time in Juggernaut matches, but yeah, I do believe firmly it should be the 3-0. I have been wrong before in predictions, but it's just definitely it's just. Although I will say, the Burning Core Hawks series was kind of amazing. This one I don't feel is going to go. I don't think it's going to go the same way. I just don't believe that DFM are going to drop.
We are not having a series like that from not from these two caliber. Dodge, please, no.
There is no, knock on wood, there's no chance for that sort of fiesta to let itself be unraveled here. And
it's too early in the morning for you two.
No, I couldn't. My poor little heart couldn't handle it. But I will say, just to sort of align with Crow and why I think this could be the 3-0 for DFM, and Crow can back me up on this because, of course, we have worked together a lot in the past on some other leagues. And I usually hedge my bets on predictions. Crow can speak to that. Even when we're going, in clear favorite matchups, I'll usually give it the 3-1 or the 3-2. But DFM have really... I think their mortality has been overstated to an extent as of late. We saw that most recent loss in the last round robin to Rascal Jester again, sort of the result of a little bit of roster shuffling. They had some emergency substitutions, and they have just been so dominant against Sengoku. And I really wanted to find the angle where it was going to come through for Sengoku, and I think, Honey running over a game is definitely a possibility, but I was going over my VOD review, and I was just flabbergasted about how badly they were getting out-macroed and outplayed around the bot lane in the early game. The early ganks that were coming from DFM were so clean. I'm not very optimistic.
Yeah, DFM not losing their main shot caller, with losing 2 players, but not their main shot caller of Steel, has definitely been a huge boon to their quiver and of choices, of options, because the fact that Steel is their main shot caller is not even now translating from our understanding. That's the crazy thing. He had to do it a bit for Aria. We are well aware of that. But the fact is, on DFM, apparently Yaharong and Harp are already fantastic at Japanese. And this is also coming from our 2 translators of Hina, of Lonely Hikamori, and Umi, of Umi Writing, I believe is his Twitter handle. God, I'm trying to do this all off the fly. They've praised how good their Japanese is, just as new players to the region and the interviews that they've been in. I was surprised. I was nervous. I was worried. But gentlemen, we are almost at it. I'm just going to let, wherever in the cosmos they are, Nightmare and Initialize, get prepared to take the desk, all right? You're going to have your moments of time to gush about these 2 teams. I am excited now because what we've basically said, gentlemen, what we're basically saying here is we're saying we want Sengoku Gaming versus most likely Rascal Jester or Burning Core. That sounds like a banger of a match to make finals in. And that means the GFM get to sit as the kind of king emperor at the very top and the winner must come up to face them. I'm looking forward. Who do you think the final's going to be? Quick and simple, very quickly. Before we see a single game, Crow. Burning Core, Rascal Jester, Sengoku. If this is where we're going, look, I want to do it.
It's really just, with how they've been playing all season. Rascal Jester just looking too crazy. Just looking too crazy to stop.
All right, Dodge, what about you? Burning Core, Rascal Jester, or Sengoku?
Rascal Jester.
All right, gentlemen, that is what we are going to predict our finals, but we'll first have to see Will Sengoku Gaming actually make it through this, or will DFM reign supreme? We'll find out very soon, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to kick it over to Initialize and Nightmare, who are going to get us ready for the pick and ban phase. Gentlemen, how you doing?
All right. Lexi told us we've got to be ready for this test. Can we be so hyped? You hyped?
I'm hyped.
Are you hyped? Are you ready?
I'm so
Oh my
hyped,
god,
yeah.
we're live. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? It's us again.
We're
We're
here.
back. Two of the three founders of the LJL officially unofficial.
We're
and
calm, collected.
We're so calm and collected
It's
here.
true.
And I believe we also have a set of predictions as well
We
to
do.
quickly cap off what the desk was just talking about. Now, this matchup has actually got a lot of historical precedence to it. You've gone with the 3-0.
I have.
I've gone with the 3-1. So just quickly go over your reasoning for the 3-0 again. Just
So
before we get into
I've
this.
been just making sure I've got my notes correct on this one because obviously Sengoku sort of officially joined the LJL around some academy stuff before that in 2019. They qualified in, but didn't really make that much happen that year. 2020, some players you might recognize, the likes of Blank, Pyrian joined the roster.
Blank was actually in there in 2019 summer.
I forget that.
Yeah.
You are right. He did join then. You're correct. Either way, they come into spring and they do really, really well. And they get into a Juggernaut match against DFM.
They do.
Where they beat DFM in that
3-2.
Juggernaut match 3-2. Unfortunately, they lost to Sengoku, to DFM in the finals, 1-3. Come to summer, Sengoku Gaming lose 1-3 to V3 at that point. And then they lose to DFM straight after, 0-3. 2021 spring, beat CGA round 1, lose to V3 again in that round 2. And it's been this consistent
Back and forth. Yeah.
of Sengoku starting strong in playoffs and then losing the match after.
As you can see here, DFM haven't really had the same kind of back and forth.
No.
It has just been smashing against the rocks of the rest of the LJL, and they have continually made finals. They have never missed a finals. Yeah. And they have, of course, now had their greatest result ever. That was at Worlds. They made a Worlds group stage. This is the team which every other LJL team looks at and says, we want to achieve that too. We want to be them. Now, Sengoku, as you said, they have actually beaten DFM in a best of 5 before. Precious few teams have done that, and they're looking to see if they can do it again in this kind of like hallowed ground of the Juggernaut match.
And yes, to those people out there who do like to be very precise with their measurements, strictly speaking, LJL Winter in 2014, which wasn't really the LJL, DFM sucked then. Back in 2014.
The very
winter,
first split.
Which wasn't, I'm not sure that really counted as DFM. It wasn't really a split. Anyway, it was super weird.
So, no, I'll tell you who actually considers that a actual LJL split. Rascal Jesters.
Rascal Jesters.
Because Rascal Jesters
yes,
won the very first split of the LJL, so they consider it a real split. Absolutely. Everyone else, it's kind of like the Season 1 World Championship.
Absolutely. But literally ever since then, DFM, the worst they have placed in the LJL is second. The worst they have placed.
And that was once in 2020 summer. That was the most recent time that's happened. Before that, of course, it was to mainly Rampage.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
So yeah, 2020 summer, they literally that was the worst regular season result they'd ever had, and they still had an over 50% win rate. Before that, the worst result they'd had in the regular season was 80%. We're throwing a load of numbers at you for DFM here just to explain how damn dominant they have been over the LJL, and they honestly look potentially better here than they have at any time in history.
So, from me on a personal level, I don't like throwing numbers at broadcast much, actually. I think that a lot of the time numbers can be quite obfuscating. They hide a lot of stuff, right? Because they tell you half a story. DFM's numbers are so out there that they tell you so much. We know that they just keep winning in this region. But of course, they're not actually the only team in this region. You look at actually this split in particular, and they're not even as far away from the rest of the competition as they have been in previous splits. Now, we look at last year, and even then, when they were so far ahead of the tree, at the top of the tree, rather, and they still lost a best of 5 to Rascal Jester. That was in the Juggernaut match of summer, and they had to come back, and we thought, oh heck, this is meant to be our undefeated, crazy team, and they got taken down. Now, I would say that Rascal Jester and Sengoku are, if not within arm's reach, beyond that, just a little bit of DFM. DFM are a strong team, but they're not an unbeatable team. Now, obviously, I predicted the 3-1. We'll go back to those predictions very quickly. And the reason I think that, and actually how I think that there is actually a route for success here with Sengoku, is that, one, DFM have occasionally been very overconfident. They have gone beyond where their safe margins are, and they think, we'll just outplay this. And they're not good enough to outplay teams the caliber of Sengoku and Rascal Jester. Rascal Jester, of course, have the winning head-to-head to them in this split. They're not here in this they went 2-1. They beat them the 2 times. Sengoku, of course, not quite at the same benchmark for that one. But still, in a best of 5, there are multiple chances for DFM to get a bit overconfident, have their game view kind of rocked a little bit, and I think Sengoku can really pounce on that because they are a caliber of a team that can seriously punish even the best team in our region on paper.
I'm glad that you threw out the hope. I'm really glad you did. I'm glad somebody has done that.
All right. How's this going, Sam?
Because I suspect this is going to be an absolute pub stomp. I had this fear, and it sinks in my soul somewhere because I want this to be an exciting series.
We want this to be 5 games. Well, I want it to be 5 games.
Exactly.
And I want it to be a good 5 games. But
there is something about this team, which is just a team in general that has been so hard to take down. And yes, there's been some, shall we say, poor preparation coming into Juggernaut matches before for this squad, but everyone's well. It's not playing Rascal Jesters with Utapon switching in for the first time top lane in 5 years, and your substitute AD carry versus Soul Secret. And that's what's going to get incredibly scary to face, is this is a full-strength DFM who are excited to take on from where they did on a team that's been playing so well. And we lay down these narratives that say Sengoku can contest, and hopefully they can at the best day. The problem is, sometimes it requires DFM to play down for them to have that opportunity. If DFM play here and Sengoku just play here, there's still quite a gulf.
That's a whole face in it.
Exactly. There's my beautiful face in there. You know, that is worth dwelling on.
We had a whisper from production. I just want to check what that was again because we were nattering so much. I heard draft is and then
soon.
Blank. So I actually don't know what that soon.
Fantastic. There we go. We are. So the thing is, our problem here is listening comprehension. We enjoy the sounds of our own voices a little too much.
Kind of means
other people just aren't as important to us. It's a problem.
That's true. Unless you're DFM and Sengoku, they're the VIP. They're the VIPs today. But obviously we've talked a lot of historically. We've talked a little bit about this split as well. But seriously, I mean, coming into this game, this best of 5, I mean, there is so much that can go wrong in your prep time, so much that can happen with your level at the end of the split and changing trajectories. That I'm really hoping for a very competitive series here, rather than hang on, let me just do a thing. Rather than
fatality.
There you go. I get to do that once per broadcast.
To those at home, I bought him this for birthday.
How are you feeling about that decision?
A couple years ago, and I feel like I need to apologize to those who've had to sort of deal with
but can you apologize, but in a voice mod?
I could.
You could. Okay,
it's right in front of me, so the answer is yes. Okay, but to bring it back a little bit away from the madness of voice modification, I think if Sengoku do take this series today, it's going to be a little bit of DFM playing to that overconfidence, playing to some of the foibles we've seen from previous Juggernaut matches in previous metas and seasons. But it's also going to take a few people to really, really, really kick it off. Yes. And for me, that has to be Jet and Honey being their superstar carry selves, and once taking over from Steel, who's been so good at controlling. And by the sounds of it as well for production, we have ourselves a draft. So with that in mind, which I might let Nightmare come back to in a few moments, we've got ourselves a pick and ban to deal with. It will be DFM over on the blue side. But on the red, it is Sengoku Gaming. A few bans straight out of the way. I appreciate the Tom Kench being taken away from Enti. One of those big ticket safety, please keep my hyper carry alive picks, alongside a Silas away from Jet, who does love to pick up some of those big ticket ultimates in the current meta.
They do, and the thing is, when you have so many targeted bans, there's this phrase which Goldborg has been using a lot this split, and I very much like it. It's being overloaded, right? Where you have, I mean, Zeri's been banned here, but you still have one of the Jinx of the FLs coming through. They're probably going to be picked up. I'm actually not sure on the 12.5B patch for this playoffs, so they're not been hotfixed, nerfed at this point. They're very, very strong. And we have talked about how insanely strong both of these AD carries are. I'm sure we're revisiting that throughout the series. And actually, instead of going for one of those picks, because you know that there's going to have to be a handshake or an uneven trade, they're sat there and think, well, let's get rid of Steel's Poppy. He's played 8 games of it, and he's looked like absolute monstrous person on that champion.
I mean, the other picks as well, like the Caitlyn, currently undefeated for Utapon, who's crushed every lane he's been on with it. It allows the Harp to go towards things like the Lux, or the Karma potentially here, as it was first picked. Interestingly, don't feel the need to trade those AD carries super early on the B1. The Tryndamere as well has been... the amount of times Ebby has tweeted, "Why on earth have you left Tryndamere open?" question mark is a bit alarming. And now we've got to see what the response will be from Sengoku. They've gone towards these more targeted bans. They'll pick up the Nautilus, which, depending on the region you're looking at, is either an incredibly powerful support pick, CLCK, C-Carrier, or a little bit of a sus, not sure what's going on here pick, which is perhaps a little bit more where the LEC has been with some very underwhelming Nautilus stats there. It will be followed up with the continuingly high presence Ari for Jet, who has been a phenomenal player this season, this split. See what he can do on the Fox.
And speaking of kind of like on a more analytical standpoint, because I guess we kind of talked about where the nameplates come into this. What all 4 of these champions do is give you early skirmishing capabilities. You're going to do that with something like Ezreal Karma if that is locked in, but Karma lanes in just regardless are going to give you prio early to allow your jungler to connect with the rest of your map and your support to connect up with them and play around, I don't know, the 3 to 5 to 8 minute mark very, very well. However, on the other side, something like Nautilus can actually throw a wrench into those plans because you can fight level 1. I don't know what AD carry they're going to go towards. There aren't a massive amount of level 1 fighters left in terms of having the Ezreal and the Caitlyn and on that kind of line of things. But they can fight very early on. I'm actually wondering if Xayah now comes in for Sengoku. I see the Hecarim and I think, maybe that's worth it. But even if you do that as the last priority AD carry, you have to play that into the Ezreal. Ezreal has been a long-term Xayah counter, and actually Sengoku say, look, we need to have something that can deal not just with the dive, but also have a bit of a stronger laning phase if it comes to it. The Aphelios is locked in and is one of Honey's real specialty champions.
Oh yeah, the things he has done on that champion are just obscene. It's not his Jinx though, which as far as I'm concerned has been his signature pick, really,
Absolutely,
over the time.
10 picks of it this split. Next highest champion, 3 played.
Yeah, absolutely. And rightly so, it's been a very strong pick, and Honey is a master on the champion. But of course, DFM have gone, for a bot side that has pressure early on, but can also play weak side, especially when you do have some incredibly dominant top side players. I quite like it. I think Hecarim for Steel is also very high priority. Let's see what the Herald of War can do this game and what Sengoku will have to try and play around it. I think something like the Veigar ban to stop some of that zone control makes a lot of sense here as well, considering the LJL meta.
Well, we saw the Vex hover, right, and I wonder if that's going to come into the equation.
Yeah.
We know that Jet and Yohrong love the high damage champions, and what you need with something like the Hecarim is have dive buddy. Now the Karma can kind of help with that with the move speed, the shields. It allows Hecarim's dive to be a bit more potent, and it allows you to kind of get over that threshold to just slaughter the enemy AD carry and then run out of the rest of that fight. You've lost. You don't have the Ahri that's been taken away. You've lost the Vex. What are you going to be doing now in terms of your mid lane to bolster what's happening with your Hecarim? Because if there is going to be something like a Lee Sin's banned, but something like the volleyball that's being hovered for early pressure in the mid jungle, you're going to have to find some way on your mid lane to kind of prop up the Hecarim before he's ready to impact this game.
All right. Volibear in, incredibly strong as stated. This champion has done a lot in recent weeks for various people. It's the ability to get things rolling, the tower dives you can make happen, really good pairing with the Ahri as well in terms of a roaming mid-jungle duo. Tower gets turned off, Ahri dives in, Ahri dives out. Bob's your uncle. He's not actually.
No,
I Bob.
Yeah.
But either way, now we've got to see what the response is. Will be the Gnar blind pick for Ebby. A staple of his over the years, been less so this split, all things said and done, but it does mean that Yohrong is the one who will be left here with the ability to counterpick the Ahri. Something like the Blancs still up might be an option. Could also look towards something like an Orianna if you wanted to facilitate the Hecarim even more.
And that's your real question at this point, what actually is your angle? You can go for an outrange if you really wanted, or you can go for early game wreck face. That has typically been DFM's calling card in some ways. Now, the LJL is not an active early game region, but DFM plays so strongly through lanes, they kind of are an early game team just by
raw mechanical prowess.
Just arm wrestling you with mechanical prowess. Now, if there's a team which can stand up to that in lane, particularly through topside, I actually would say it's Sengoku Paz, old man Paz, veteran, been there at the similar kind of time as Ebby has. These two have been playing off against each other and trying to win late against each other for as long as I have
2015.
Since as long as I've known this region. There's going to be a Graves to nullify out that Gnar. We've basically had double, not double counterpicks actually. It's been like a counterpick either way rather. You've had the LeBlanc into the Ahri, that's the choice of matchup. You had the Graves into the Gnar, that's a choice of matchup. Topside, very competitive across the board here. Lots of ability, once again. Actually, think about it. Across the entire board, lots of ability to skirmish early, start things off. Very flexible drafts from both. It comes down to execution now.
Yep, hard engaged junglers, so pick playmaking mid laners, 2 side laners that are likely not, top laners who are likely not going to get too much attention. And then, honestly, perhaps the big difference here is just the kind of bot lane styles. It's push and poke from an Ezreal Karma with a certain amount of mobility, right? Ezreal's pretty hard to lock down, versus Aphelios Nautilus, which is hyper carry plus engage. And that, I feel, is kind of the distinction of the comps, because everything else is at least got some level of parity, even if the scaling's changed.
So I agree with that, but then you have to look at very specific interactions. So for me, big one, you look at that bot lane 2v2, very right to call that out. Thing is that the Aphelios Nautilus want to fight early, Ezreal Karma want to poke early, but even with that, the 3v3 goes in the way of Sengoku. If Volibear comes down, Volibear runs through that lane. If a hook lands, you are struggling to get out. You only have 1 arcane shift, and it's on a very long cooldown early game, of course. Now, you can counter gank as the Hecarim, but I wonder if that's going to be enough. So I think that one of DFM's loss conditions in this game is getting 3v2'd or 3v3'd early through bot side. They need to avoid that, as opposed to they can do similar things top side. So I think that bot side is where Sengoku can really strike. If things are passive, though, which they typically have been in the LGL, I think that works out in DFM's favor.
Watch for those early river wars as well. Can you track a potentially spicy early gank from Wansu, while Steel has been pretty much the premier jungle in the LJL this split? Wansu has certainly thrown his name in the ring. Honestly, for both of these teams, pretty much every player has thrown their name in the ring. You've seen our old pro votes, and Honey and Udapon right at the top of there for their roles as well. All of that kind of thing is something to play around. But I do need to see what this Volibear does early, and whether DFM scout it out.
Speaking of that Volibear, first time for once this split, actually. He's played 5 champions throughout the entire split, and it's worth noting that we have, 21 regular season games, so that's not the most champion diversity, though, you know, jungle pool has been fairly constrained in terms of the meta, but having the Volibear as another early game aggressive jungler, it fits Wance's style. It's not a flashy, diving in, dash playmaking champion with like Lee Sin, Jarvan, Jin Zhao, stuff like that. But it is still something that can get the ball rolling early. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing what Wance can do with a champion and a composition that needs him to do stuff early, I'd say.
Absolutely. And of course, that's partly because Wance, as you were saying, has really preferred the Lee Sin. He's so confident, so practiced on the champion. He's been our premier Lee Sin player. As much as we've been talking about the word premier a lot, at least on my end when it comes to these junglers, his Lee Sin has been so good for so long. Of course, he was on Burning Core for a couple years with mixed results, we should say. This year, he's finally come back alive, looked really scary. And being on a Volibear with a lot of this early playmaking, a lot of the ability to force dives, be an unstoppable engage option to match the Hecarim is pretty exciting to watch. Interestingly, though, he started bot side and will be pathing towards the top, whereas Hecarim is going from top to bot. So actually not where I was expecting the Volibear to end up. Maybe looking to punish Ebby if he's overextending.
And what we've also not seen is any deep wards to actually track where this is happening. Because again, sometimes you play as a jungler to just play unexpected a little bit and just say, look, they expect me to do this. Let's see if I can just catch them out by playing to the opposite side of the map. Now, that's one thing about the junglers. I actually want to talk about the early mid lane trading. Well, let's talk about early bot lane trading.
Early bot lane trading has the passive route in, and it won't be too much more. So when we talked about it, we've stopped now.
Okay, again, Aphelios is not really a champion at level 1. However, Nautilus very much is one of the reasons that you pick that champion with the Aphelios. It kind of props up that level 1. Before then, the level 2, 3 become real kill threat after that point. Speaking of kill threat, though, lots of high damage in this mid lane. Yahorong's actually taken bone plating and resolve secondary on the LeBlanc. That's something which we saw with LeBlanc into Vex sometimes. You can see that right there. I mean, you jump in, you trade electrocutes. But when you have electrocute and bone plating up, because the Ahri has gone for the time warp and inspiration secondary, you have a bit more regen over time. But in terms of the burst, you're taking a lot less damage to that LeBlanc. So an interesting kind of tech option from Yahorong. Does mean you give up something like Dematerializer, which can contest push against Ahri sometimes, though, in the early game. So Jet's going to get that priority, which allows, once again, on the Volibear to maybe have a few more options. Question is, what are they going to do with it? Because they've just gone for the full clear right now. They're not looking for something aggressive. Let's see what happens on the second clear.
Absolutely, and you know, DFM do have Shove in the bot side, which is obviously where they want to focus anyway. So if you can kind of play a little bit more reserve until level 6, for example, comes through for Yarhong, and you've got a little bit more to play with the LeBlanc and those mimic spells, and Steel can get towards level 6 and suddenly then be a real kill threat with either of these laners, or honestly the bot lane if you can find a good enough angle. You've got stuff to work with, and You can see the bot lane has been well secured with the early Skull Crab. Ward's gone in onto the respawning Gromp, which will be coming up over the next minute or so. And that is the trade DFM have been happy to make. Good Mantra Soul Flare there from the side of Harp. And that will lead us just that early poke coming through and a little more to be riding home about right now. We'll have to work on to those second clears you called out just a few moments ago.
Yeah, so, and again, just for those of you that are tuning in just to see what's happening with MSI qualification, what's happening with the final stages of these minor regions playoffs and stuff, these are, of course, 2 of our top teams. And, and you have to see what happens with this region going internationally. This is a region which plays slowly in the early game. As we said, sometimes DFM will just brutalize lane, so it doesn't really matter. But you can see right now, even though there are some ways to play around the early game, neither team wants to flip anything early, and they're waiting until a couple of item spikes come in, maybe towards that Herald, before they really start things going.
Oh, Honey has to flash out there. Great stuff from Harp with the root.
Ignites.
Turn around from an NT, try to flash away, but it's still going to be the kill! And now Unipod can keep running. That's why he's the first team All-Pro AD carry. Once comes thundering in, but it's too little, too late. 2v2, 2 kills.
And for the last year of play, Honey has been the premier, we're using that word again, AD carry in the LJL. He has been the hyper carry, he has been the be-all and the end-all of our top tier AD carries. But Utespawn's been around longer, baby. He's played as Ezreal since as long as he has been on the Rift. Against the newer player to the roster of Harp, they find themselves the 2v2 against 2 stalwarts of the region, and it does seems really that as much as you can fight early as the Aphelios and the Nautilus, if you don't shut out one of those players early, the continued damage between the Conqueror, between the Karma being a significant damage threat too, that 2v2 goes very poorly.
It does. Steel might be face-checking here. He's going to max away, though, and they're going to miss the dredge line. Nice smarty senses there.
Not even close. Doesn't have to blow the ghost, just gets out with his own hooves clopping across there. And what this does mean is, of course, DFM are still here in presence on the bot side. It's not enough to dissuade Sengoku from taking a early dragon. I think actually the reason this happened is because DFM took the 2v2, but was still low HP, they had to still take a reset and see what they could do.
That's so
Sengoku get the
nauseous.
first bite at this dragon, they're gonna take it. DFM not in a position to fight. Again, I think it's just the resets after the kill led to that eventuality. Not the worst thing in the world,
Ooh,
however.
good charm onto Yaharong, who did dive forward, steps back again, actually misses the chains, and now could be in a spot of bother, actually. Needs to wait out on things like the charm. There's the Spirit Rush, but here comes Steel!
Oh!
Still gets the Orb of Deception, tries to outplay it, and Jet gets the 1v1.
Okay, now the way I would describe the Ahri versus LeBlanc matchup from the Ahri side, look, I'm an Ahri man, I'm gonna talk about it. It's, you're at a casino, and you know you're doing something a little bit naughty, you're cooldown counting, you see how many spells the LeBlanc's got, where can they flick back to? Because if they're not able to get out of your chase down range from your ult, you get to do stuff like this, because Jet is stood behind the minion wave. What Yaharong is trying to do is play around that melee minion stood in front of him. Jet angles it perfectly though, so he has a clear line of sight. But look at this, Yaharong doesn't have the ult at this point, can't jump away, and though Steel is in the radius of that mid lane, Jet plays that 1v1 really, really well. Love that play.
Great stuff. It was a close one, but Jet comes out on top, at least this time
And now we have to
around.
eject him from the casino because
Exactly
he
that.
has been cooldown
How
counting.
dare you? Exactly that. It's not called cooldown anymore. It's ability haste. It's okay. Still a little bit salty about that. Why change the name? Anyway, we're moving away from that. It's still going to be a relatively heavy early gold lead for DFM here, about 1,500 gold, which is great news for them. But of course, Jet, this MVP, this other win condition, doing exceptional things to get that kill. Of course, means he can get the early Merc treads. It's a good start, but the 2 kills on the bot side, the plate that's gone down already down there, that is a little bit more worrying to work with right now.
Okay, but more important things, which again for me is talking about Ahri.
Sure.
Things. Got the dog seal on first back. I
I'm
love
so
it when
happy
Ahri
for
players do this. It is something which is sorely overlooked from so many Ahri players, and actually mage players in general. First back Dark Seal is better than a Mana Crystal. If you're building up towards a Lost Chapter, just get that instead. It has so much payoff if you get early plays. Now you have the 2 stacks, and it suddenly, look at the 8-minute mark. There's a Herald up. If a fight were to come down around that, or a second dragon, and you pick up a couple assists, maybe a kill and assist, you're getting up towards that 5-6 stack mark. maybe you can start thinking about snowballing to a Medjai's. And at that point, with champions like a LeBlanc, with like an Ahri in this game too, without a huge amount of targeted lockdown, you already have the Merc Treads, Jet could be in for serious solo carry performances, and boy has he had them before in this split. He really has been putting on an MVP carry split almost in, at least in a lot of people's eyes. There's a bit of contention. Ebby's obviously been having a wonderful split of his own. But Jet having that agency, very important.
Honey. Okay, they're going to just charge him back. He has not got Flash. He's got Cleanse, but I don't think it's going to make too much difference. Going to try and get some Chakrams up. He's got Severum Crescendo. The turnaround. They try to stop the back and overdive. Cute idea, goes horribly wrong.
It does. The ult doesn't land. The fear doesn't come through. Honey gets to throw out the Chakram ult. That Crescendum, when you have a single target ult, it got buffed a number of patches ago. Single target Chakrams on the ult they stack up so quickly with that ult. You get like something like 3 base, and that means that your DPS goes through the roof.
Yaharong now just trying to see whether he can weigh out the charm. Doesn't, so he'll take an Orb of Deception and feel a bit unhappy about it. But of course, not going to take too much damage at this point of the game. Steals back on the map and will rescue some of his Raptors. All the while, though, of course, DFM didn't contest the Herald because they wanted to shove in and get as many plates here as they could, and do get a fair number of them. And Honey, yes, he gets the kill, but he's still been zoned off quite a lot of CS here, so it's a nice silver lining. I don't think it's as clean a victory as he would have liked.
No, and the thing is, this also shows the decision-making at DFM is very sound here. Imagine what would have happened if DFLOS does die. If you kill DFLOS, suddenly it's like, oh boy, this is going pretty badly. That's another wave gone. That's another plate gone. And then you look at Ophelos as this resource-intensive hypercarry ADC behind the curve of the game, and Sengoku would actually struggle in mid-game at that point.
Paz is in trouble. That's going to be a solo kill. Hops forward, gets the Mega Gnar into the wall, and it's a very dead Outlaw.
Oh, and Ebby, the #1 solo killer in the LJL. He adds another to their name. Had a breakout year last year on the international stage. Brought DFM to such a high level, the highest result this region has ever known. But for those of you who haven't followed his progress in this split after that point, he's having one of his best splits yet. And it's plays like that where he just diffs the top lane, which really bring this team onto another level.
Yeah, and there's now been solo kills in every lane.
That is his 23rd solo kill in... Okay, so they've played 21 regular season matches. This is their first playoffs match. So that's 22 games, 23 solo kills in 22 games.
That is very impressive.
Solo kill up again, baby.
That is very impressive. And considering the variety of plays we've heard, sometimes he's been weak side, not having to be the damage side. Sometimes he's been very strong side. And that flexibility has been so powerful. Utapon nearly at his 4th plate down here as well. Yes, the kills are relatively even. Yes, there's been some throwback from Sengoku Gaming, but the problem is they're still bleeding out a lot of gold. Ebby hops forward, could start autoing even more. He went for a Cull Pass. He's got no boots, and the auto attack damage is just brutal as Utapon gets to Arcane Shift forward as well. But maybe we've got a skirmish in mid lane and starting to play around. Look, NT's around. Maybe that could be a point of order.
I've actually forgotten a very important fact to him.
Yes.
Because Ebby was actually ill and out for a couple of games.
Yeah, he was.
It's not even... No. It's not even 23 solo kills in 22 games. No. It's 23 solo kills in 20 games. Knock a couple of them off. Also, DFM only lost the one game while Ebby was in the roster. That was one of the games to Rascal Jester. And you can see how important this guy is to this team. I think anyone with eyes could have seen that last year. And anyone with eyes can see that Honey is not happy at all.
Flashed out from certain death. That's a big one, but my days, the bot side is not looking particularly great here. Yaharong might be in trouble, though. He's going to miss the change now, going to try and outplay. Here's Ebby to try and turn it around. Once, stepping forward, just get a thundering smash, but Ebby trying to build up towards the Mega Gnar. Hops over Jet, now can continue trading. He's got Mega Gnar so damn close, but there's the ultimate, flashes away! Yaharong in, gets the kill there, and now Steel is around as well. What can Once do? He's just going to stop there and die. Charging back in, but it's not going to matter. Now NT's in trouble. Depth charges there, but the tower aggro will not be quite enough, and DFM get the mid jungle in mid lane.
Victory goes to the
Flash Soul Flyer! Gonna try and gets the kill as well. Now he's got the wave in, and everybody's dead for Sengoku. Oh.
And it is a very, very odd game when your support has more kills than your carry mid, your carry bot. 2-0-1, Hub, bloodthirsty to the limit again. We played that little Mortal Kombat game a little bit before we came into this first one, but this is serious. There's brutality from DFM. They're playing around their skirmishing prowess. And actually this play with Ebby coming down into the mid lane, this is something that DFM did all the time last spring when they had Arya, when they were playing on the Rise and the Renekton to get Prio. The Nav pushes out that lane, bullies out the top lane, comes into the mid and makes it an uneven numbers fight. The rest of the team link up, and this is what's really special about DFM. Last year, they were mechanical powerhouses who needed to work on their synergy, to work on getting everyone together. This time, at this point in the split, DFM are already a very coordinated
Jet's
team.
in trouble. Remember, there's no flash. Does have the ultimate to get away, but hops around the back. It's another one for the Karma, and it's looking like someone on Sengoku's been a very naughty person because their Karma is all bad this game.
Oh, Karma, as we know, is a very nasty
lady.
woman.
Yeah.
DFM, again, we keep bringing up this point. This is one which I really want to hammer home. If you haven't watched the LJL this split, if you want to know what's happening in our region, DFM were looking to rebuild this split. They lost two of their greatest members, some of the greatest members the region has ever known. They lost Arya, they lost Gang, they brought in Yaharong and Harp, and boy, they have not missed a beat.
No, they have not. And Sengoku, it was a turnaround of the bot side when they tried to keep Honey away from play. It was a solo kill the mid lane for Jet. And honestly, that's been it. Couple neutral objectives have gone down for pretty hefty trades elsewhere. Now you're seeing bounties across the board. Somehow, someway, Utapon doesn't have one. Oof. And now you see the plate differential. Utapon and Harp did that by themselves practically, and the game is all but over at this point. It's 5,500 gold sub 15 minutes.
It is, and a lot of this is, again, the way we characterize this team and this region. The LJL does not play early game, they play through lanes. Now, Utapon, he might be getting played through his own mid lane.
Oh.
Sorry, missed out on that hook. Oh, Honey, so close to hitting the press the attack craziness.
Can't quite make it happen, and Utapon gets away, doesn't burn flash, doesn't burn heal, and he was playing with fire there and gets away with it.
He actually has the fleet footwork. I forget that's what Felix is taking in this match. But either way, if you hit the moonshot into the Crescendum Moonlight Vigil, the double auto attack reset on the Calibrum, just having those rifle shots firing in from absolute orbit, crazy amounts of damage. Utapon lucky to get away with that.
Yeah, there is no flying blender to deal with this time around, and he gets away with it. Of course, did have the heal, so would likely be able to get away with it, but it would have been a little closer than he would have liked.
I think if both hit, I think you're saying goodnight there. It's close.
It would have been close.
Either way, he doesn't have to worry about it.
Either way,
maybe we can
he
have,
gets away with it.
You know, I watched an episode or two of the Marvel What If series. Next episode with Utapon.
Yeah,
there we go.
For sure. I'd be very curious to see.
You know what would have been a great What If episode? Because this goes to this matchup too. 2020 spring, first matchup the first split that we covered as a stream here, as fans of this broadcast, fans of this region. That Juggernaut match was DFM Sengoku, and Sengoku blasted them. They knew how to play around the Victor. They had the Ezreal coming in on the crazy patch with the Death Dance coming in. They had a great read on the meta, and then they lost the finals because the patch changed to 3 beyond it. That was when COVID was just hitting. Sengoku, in this matchup, may well have taken a title in some time in the past. They have to sit there and think, what if? But luckily today, they have another chance to try and change that narrative again. It's going to be a tough one. We've seen how far they're behind they are in this game, and how far they've been, again, brutalized, really, by DFM skirmishing their laning potential.
Yeah.
But in this series, we know that they are a strong team. We know they have the history of beating this team in a 5v5. Question is, can they do it again on the day?
Ebby's 2,000 gold, Utapon's 2,000 gold ahead, and Yarong's up 1,000 himself. Now there's a mid lane turret that's gone down. The Herald didn't even lose any HP for it, and the damage coming through from the other side of DFM is starting to get very nasty. Paz gets chunked out, steals around. They do get the second charge and allow them to back off and look to hunt elsewhere around the map. It's a dragon and peace right now as well, and we are on an ocean rift, but we've still got a little bit of time before something like an ocean dragon is spawning. And unfortunately for Sengoku, there is no soul wing condition. And honestly, yeah, they've got some scaling, but it's not like they've got the most to play for later either, and that gets pretty scary to deal with when everybody at this point is someone for Utapon to just chunk out with 2 skills.
And that's a real difficulty, because Sengoku now have to sit and play to the beat of DFM's drum, because they don't have the choice of where they are on the map. They need to really be playing responsive to DFM and say, look, how are we clearing out these side lanes? How are we holding mid lane? And they haven't been able to hold their lane so far. As soon as DFM choose to force the issue, Sengoku just had to say, all right, cool, we'll meet you there. We don't have a choice to let you group up. Sengoku are trying to now use this kind of drop in the rhythm to try and get some vision around the map, but even then, it's so dangerous. NT pushing up so far, very nearly getting punished.
There's a Shirelius to give some speed, so the shield, the Mantra shield, of course, that Defiance won't need to be used right now, and they just force them straight out of the jungle again.
And that was a risk taken to clear 1 down ward. That's it. They have to walk into the enemy jungle and say, let's hope we can clear. Okay, no, we got to get out. They have, at least in this point, Sengoku, on the presence of mind to say,
TP?
no, it is just the one, but he has a Mega Narbar.
He does have a Mega Narbar, and Paz has got flash, he's got collateral damage. He's going to have to try and get the most out of both here. Where's the quick draw? Mega Narb back,
he cancels it.
And that's so frustrating. Ebby is just too clean. He reads it like a book. Unfortunately, there's only a few pages left, and Ebby tears him straight out.
And one of the only thing written on those pages is, why did I buy a shield bow? He doesn't even have an Eclipse. He's had to go for the heavily nerfed since last World crit build on the Graves. Doesn't have an Eclipse. Doesn't have the ability to even scale up into a 2-3 item power spike on the Graves for a team fighting purpose. He's going to be losing side lanes with a suboptimal build, and he's died for the second time in this lane. And Ebby is running rampant.
3-0-2 on his signature Nah. A pick he's not even really needed to go towards this split, frankly, as Yaharong will hold Jet away from this tower. Ebby gets the tier 2 down here, and fortunately for Paz, this is not an unknown state of affairs. He was versus Ebby in 2015 when Ebby joined the league on 7th Heaven. He was on Rampage.
7th Heaven, now that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
And then Paz leaves Rampage, and Ebby takes over, and he loses to Ebby on Rampage. While he's on DFM of all teams. Paz moves to DFM. Then Paz leaves DFM to go join Pentagram. Ebby joins DFM, and he loses on Pentagram. And then at that point, Ebby has stayed on DFM, whatever other team Paz has joined, aside from the V3 roster in 2020 that went to Worlds and didn't perform as well as they would have liked. Ebby's just had Paz's number.
And actually, speaking of that, okay, let's bring it back to the international picture again. So obviously, we've seen Ebby international a lot recently, but the last time we saw Paz go internationally, things were not as well as we would have really liked them. V3 was a very macro-heavy, rotation-heavy team, but they lacked some of that mechanical punch, the laning strength. That was the thing which they really lacked as a team. That is the difference between Paz and Ebby for me. I think Paz, when things are stable, when he's able to play out a larger, more rotation-based style, is so impactful to his team. If he has to play the heavy laning style, though, that's where Ebby has always shined. DFM have always shined in that regard, and they're looking again to carry that torch forward that they lit last year and really set this whole region ablaze and go forward to another international event and say, look, yeah, we can continue to do this. It wasn't just one flash in the pan. Let's make it another year of success for Japan.
To bring it back down from the wider picture here as well, a couple little things to keep your eyes on. Of course, you called out the Immortal Shield Bow, which made some sense as well, but I do want to point out a lost chapter in inventory. The Unibon is likely going towards like a Crown of the Shattered Queen here,
yes.
Which honestly, considering his main threats are getting picked by Nautilus Ari, or even just like a big Moonshot combo, I don't hate that actually. I think.
So Ezreal's mythic items have been a point of discussion for a very long time. Actually, stuff like Eclipse and Prowler Score can be very good on Ezreal, because you start hitting those Qs, then the extra armor penetration comes in, really clutch. But when you are sat with such a lead, it reminds me of what Gambit Gaming used to do. Season 4, Season 5, where they would buy Guardian Angels on everyone, even though it was kind of a meh item at the time, and just be like, look, you're never killing us. We have secured our lead. We are playing with our damage. You're not going to have a chance to shut us down. Something like the Crown in this game, where there isn't really a large amount of stuff that can remove it, maybe a lucky Graves smoke screen or an ult across it, that's going to be the best you're going to get, and that's not really going to be enough to really shut Ezreal out of a fight. Ezreal's likely going to have Crown at the moment, which he really wants it, and Sengoku are going to struggle to shut down the Ezreal while he has it active.
And with the Muramana transformation through as well, you're at this position where Ezreal has 2 items, is looking towards getting that defensive option as well, which will honestly give him a little bit more poke on things like the W, on the R. Like, it's not even like it's losing him too much damage. In fact, there is the Crown of the Shattered Queen. I'm beginning to run out of options here for Sengoku. It feels like it's potentially a Baron Steel maybe as an option. It's get Honey to 3 items and get the mother of all of Helios fights. But otherwise, I feel like it's looking very dire right now.
That's because if you feel like it's looking dire, it's because it is. I will confirm that for you. It's not looking good.
I tried to be gentle, but there's not a lot of gentleness in this
DFM
game.
are not giving the same courtesy. They have, huge CS lead on AD carry, huge CS lead on top. Mid lane is somewhat even, but the Ahri, even with the Void staff second, is not really going to be achieving a great deal. in this fight. You need to play around vision, which you have none of right now. And if it is going to be playing into vision, you're still not going to be able to get a lot of these snap picks that you want because the Hecarim, the Nara are very tanky. You've got a Merc Treads and a HP on the Yellow Blanc, and there's a Crown on the Ezreal. You need to really be lucky now, and maybe outside of picks, you play around a lucky steal on an objective. Maybe that's it.
Your best bet is trying to get a hold of
We've seen a couple of them recently.
Exactly.
We've seen a couple of old objective throws.
That's the ward's gone. They've got one over the back of their red buff now, and they're dashing away as Jet is now the target as they've been forced out of their own jungle. He's going to get the Spirit Rush away, and there's a teleport afterwards as well, so they'll take the TP and ult for ult trade.
Okay, but then with the Spirit Rush goes
good
Charm.
but it's going to be into Meganar, who's so tanky. You've got to pick, but what does it mean? They're going to try and get onto Steel, though. Who's going to take very low, but not go down? And now Unibot is here, finds the Mystic Shot to get a kill onto Jet, who's been turned into dust in trade. Yes, there's a Moonlight Vigil. Paz will stay alive until the Boulder Clips. Won't quite be a flash for the Dalto. There from Yarong, I apologize. A Sigil of Malice will actually be what it was. It's a Q in the face for the jungler. He dies alongside Paz, and now a 3 for none. They'll turn back to Baron. That's playing with the wallets. That's playing with the defensive tools. It's playing with a little bit of style.
And it's playing with a bit of comfort alongside it. It's Ebby's Gnar. We know this is a historical pick for him. It doesn't matter if he's not played at this split. Same can be said of Utapon. You know how many games he's played with that champion? 53, including this one. He has a 77% win rate across all of his games, and he has not, again, missed a beat. Said that a couple of times in this game because it really feels like DFM have the rhythm. They have, again, that comfort. They know exactly what they want to play out in this game. And Utapon goes completely untouched. Yeah, he doesn't have the crown for this fight. Was actually popped just a little bit before it. But look how much damage he's just pumping out across Sengoku. Honey is not there. Look at the AD carry difference in terms of the auto attack uptime. DFM have everyone in the right place at the right time, and they are just tearing Sengoku to shreds.
W flash Q. What you'll love to see.
That's really slick.
That was very clean, and this was perhaps my worry a little bit. Jet has been the MVP mid laner. I don't think there'll be anyone to argue against that, but problem is he's also against a mid laner who has also been...
I think some people will be arguing for Yarong. We'll just put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely, but obviously Yarong has been also right up there. He's just been less required, if you know what I mean. He's been on a team with Ebby, Unipon, Steel, Harp, who's got multiple solo kills. And it means that sometimes, despite being a shining star, you're surrounded by others who shine just as brightly. And that constellation is
become a nebula.
Exactly that, and you're seeing it in this game. Yes, these two mid laners are kind of trading blow for blow in the early game, but it means that Jet is still not able to get a monumental advantage in this game because of who he's against partly, and now they're under siege. There's a Baron there down, there are no outer turrets, and it's a dark, dark map, and it is full of terrors wherever you look.
It is, and Utapon free-firing under the turret, willing to take turret shots. No one's actually in a position to take them down. You've got a last Whisper built up in inventory, and look at the siege. Look at the dive.
Yeah, that's what he's done. Steel, what was that? He's going to die in the turnaround, though, as I was going to try and finish up the infamous Doa phrase, but I don't think it managed to get it knocked back anyway. Honey's going to try and flash out. Maybe they get something down, but Unipon is still untouched. He just Orkin shifted to the face of Paz and gets himself a double. Honey will get back to the fountain, but he's down all summoners, and you'll take the 1-for-3 trade. They'll move in onto the Nexus towers, and I think we can write this one off unless Jet and Honey can pull off the miracle of all base defenses.
I don't think it's going to happen. Turret's going down. Nexus sure to follow.
Yarong will distort forwards, look to try and get another bit of auto attack damage down. Can't quite kill the AD carry, but it will matter not at all. They'll throw out a G-Rex logo, because of course, why not? And in 26.5 minutes, DFM put Sengoku to the sword.
And it does definitely feel like Sengoku had they had a responsibility to get things going early. They had the Volibear. They had maybe the ability to play through mid-jungle. Maybe they could play through a 3v3 bot. There are options there. They lost that 2v2 heavily in bot side. Honey was no longer really in a position to solo carry after that point, and Sengoku seriously lacked comeback mechanics after they started falling behind the curve of that game. They need to seriously rethink what they're going to do with the draft if they can't play through early game, because that was missing all of the checklists there. And a lot of it is because DFM have ripped that checklist out of their hands, torn it up and said, lane against us, you fools. And they couldn't match up to it.
Not this time, unfortunately. Solo kills abounded, early gold leads abounded, and there wasn't really much to be done from there. But that does mean we're going to have to cut to a quick break while we catch our breath, and the analyst desk will be back right after that to help break down that game and set up for the rest of the series. All right, gents, you're going to have to figure out how this one goes from here.
Wait, no, my breath.
welcome back. Oh, where am I going? What am I doing? Doesn't matter, I'm here again, as always, my swan. Beautiful Crow, infinite dodge, gentlemen. DFM won that one in decisive fashion. And let's just get straight into this one, because I think that was a quick game from DFM's perspective, and we'll do a quick test for that, because when it came to the pick and ban phase, DFM got some real power picks here in the Karma, in the Hecarim, and Crow, that was one of those picks that, well, one of them we said, they can't have this, no one's allowed this, and it made it through the draft.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like, we touched on it before the draft. Like, oh, yeah, Hecarim, very strong. Both jugglers play it. Oh, wow, he's a menace on this patch. And you see why. The haunted spirits of the glue factories came together and decided to run rampant amongst the other members of DFM. And, yeah, you saw the results of it.
Dodge, we were talking about Sengoku's draft. They got some interesting picks, but they seem to be going back towards certain picks that they find comfort on and aren't necessarily great on more than anything else in the meta.
Yeah, we have dissected a little bit that Paz is sort of a weak side player, but gravitates towards the Graves because even though it's thought of as a very aggressive champion, wants to push out the lane, establish priority and dominance, it does have neutralizing factors, right? It can stack armor, it has mobility, and can have some tricky getaway scenarios as well, using the ultimate, so it's not the most bizarre pick for a weak side laner, but to prioritize it as a first pick and let the likes of...
That was the last pick.
Oh, is this not? Okay.
That's in draft order. This is all in draft order. Eddie did not play top Karma, I promise you.
I would hope not. I mean, it could do. It could. I've seen it. It works. But yeah.
No, but it was it's what they responded into the Gnar with. So you're correct with where you said that though. And that was surprising because Eddie seemed to have his number. It felt like.
I mean, this guy's so good. It's not just the Tryndamirs, it's not just the Gwens. You give him the Gnar, and he will solo kill you. Another tally on that chalkboard for Evie. He's unstoppable.
Quote you from how that game went when he dinged over to level 60 mid-team fight. I'm looking forward to Ebby's world skin. I am too, Dodge. I really am for that. Let's talk, though, about, honestly, how these first 10 minutes went. And Dodge, coming back over to you. DFM's early game was pretty strong.
Yeah, I think it was pretty strong. Pretty strong. You know, it was pretty good the way that they forced 2v2 kills like that down in the bot lane. And, you know, it was just once looking on helplessly on the Volibear. And it's very reflective of sort of what we touched on in the pre-show about how the regular season matchups between these teams went, where it was often DFM establishing strong control in that bot lane and being the proactive, aggressive side of the matchup, where we've seen, you know, Sengoku's bot lane, they're not scrubs. Especially not Honey, but DFM has the power to look pretty bad.
True, and I mean Crow, Sengoku, they didn't roll over after the first few minutes went horribly.
Yeah, I mean it's what's that South Park meme? Randy Marsh getting kicked in. He's like, "Hey, I didn't hear no bell. Just spit out some blood. Keep going." It got pretty bad, but like. They tried their best. I will say I did like a lot of their rotations. They were trying to answer a lot of the aggression that DFM was putting out. But when you have that composition, when you have the Karma that can roam so effortlessly and just be like, Unify can just be like, all right, tag out, I'm going. All right, see you in like 5. Have fun, don't die. And just affect the rest of the map like that. It does make things so much difficult to mount some sort of comeback. I will say Jet was trying to make things happen on this Ahri. Great pick to make stuff happen with. You saw him get that 1v1 kill in mid lane. You're like, okay, that's a start. That's something, but it's gonna need a lot more than that if they are looking to even try and take one game in the series.
Well, they sadly weren't able to get that to work out for them for very long, though. We're gonna get ready to go over to a short break because, ladies and gentlemen, after that one good moment from Jet, the rest of the game did not have any good moments for the side of Sengoku Gaming. Ebby came in for that mid lane gank, and that was pretty much all she wrote afterwards. So there's no sense in really harping on this game too much. So Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is we're going to go to a short break. But when we come back, we're going to get you ready for game number 2. We're going to give you some more ideas. Get that Sengoku copium going. I know Temporal and Melvin Izzle are going to need it because we believe in them. We want the full 5 games. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute.